stacks on her mind, grinding all day, hustle refined, shattering ceilings, she's fierce and untamed. Boss is her title, wealth is her game.
Welcome back to the Hiring Women podcast. And I'm your host, Becky Porter. Our mission for this podcast is to make financial conversations accessible so that hiring women can make confident financial decisions and live the life they truly deserve. And if you've been riding with us for a while, you know I love pretending to be a DJ on the show. I don't get out much. And link female musical artists with the topic we're about to talk about today. And we've been listening to the sounds of Sia, and the song is The Greatest. And you need to check out the lyrics of this one. It's so fitting for our guest today. What do you think of the song, Confidant Community, High Earning Community? I personally love Sia. And I wanted you to listen to these lyrics because it's fire. So one of the lyrics says, running out of breath, but I've got stamina. See another mountain to climb, but I've got stamina. Don't give up, won't give up, don't give up, no, no, no. I'm free to be the greatest alive. And I just think powerful lyrics right there. And I really want to take this opportunity as Sia talks about being the greatest, because so many female women out there female entrepreneurs don't give themselves enough credit when it comes to things in business that get hard. And often they have to put on their big girl pants and still, when things get hard, go on to create extremely successful businesses. And here's the thing, no one sees the sleepless nights when they might be thinking about making payroll or even being rejected by potential funders. Nobody understands your vision more than you do. So I just want to celebrate women who are leveling up and not giving up. Women like the one I'm going to introduce you today to. So I just want to know that I'm joined here by someone I deeply admire, Lisa Madam. Lisa, you are an entrepreneur, you're a strategist, you're an advocate for women's leadership. I saw you speak at the Vibe CEO event and I was just blown away. She's the founder of Sahajan, and please tell me I said this right.
Sahajan, but that's okay.
Sahajan.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that right now?
Yeah, Sahajan.
Okay, good. And it's Sahajan, which is a clean beauty brand rooted in the science of Ayurveda. And she's been recognized as one of the top 10 women entrepreneurs in Canada. And in today's conversation, we're actually going to talk about building a business with purpose, navigating leadership as a woman of influence. And I also want to talk a little bit about how, because I don't know how you do it. How do you balance ambition with all this authenticity that you bring? I just have so many questions. Anyway, Lisa, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. You have no idea.
I'm so thrilled to be here. And I have to say off the cuff, and this is we didn't plan any of this, but you told me that you were going to play a song that you thought was fitting. And so when you were playing, I was listening to the lyrics, and I'm sure I've heard the song so many times, but I actually was like, my heart was like, oh my gosh, this is so special. And then I was like, I'm going to add this. My kids are a bit older now, but when they were little, my husband used to leave early. So I would like play a song to like wake them up in the morning. When they were really little, we used to like dance around the house in the morning before school. Now they look at me like, can you stop? But but I think that might become my morning song.
Oh, no way. Okay, that's amazing. I mean, honestly, like for me.
Would I listen to the words? Because, sometimes you also, as people, we need, it's almost like powerful words. My husband once told me, because I sometimes I think can be self-deprecating. And he was like, one, you should stop doing that because it's a terrible habit. But two, he's not very woo-woo, but he was like, you keep telling yourself like these negative things, right? So it's better, like, once you hear those kinds of lyrics, you're like, yeah, won't give up. Mm-hmm.
Agreed. And you haven't given up. I'm sure you have your share of war stories in your chest, right? In your war chest.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait to hear them. But I'm so thrilled that you're inspired by the song, because absolutely music inspires me, which is why I always start these podcasts
Mm-hmm.
with music. So I want you to take us back to the beginning.
Yeah.
What inspired you to create Sahajan, and how did your personal journey shape your brand?
Absolutely. So it was very much a personal journey and very much personally inspired. So I worked in corporate at the beginning of my career. I worked in pharmaceuticals and I worked in specialty biotech and then for a big pharma corporation. And in those days, if you had asked me, like, I definitely thought my vision was to like be a senior person in corporate. That's, that would have been the goal. And then I ended up moving into consulting. And when I was consulting, I was pregnant with my second. I came home one day and my daughter had been playing with my skincare and she had it all over her face. The way that kids play with things, right? She had it on her
Right.
face and her arms and like everywhere. And I remember looking at her and, obviously I thought she was incredibly cute, but more, I was really compelled by like this feeling of like, oh my gosh, take that off your face. Like, I have no idea what the ingredients in my skincare are going to do to your young, beautiful skin. At the
Oh,
time,
wow.
I was, much younger than I am now, but I was still buying things that were like turn back the hands of time and anti-fatigue. I remember anti-fatigue was a big thing. I always looked tired. I always laugh because whenever I see like people who grew up with me, like my aunts and uncles, like the first thing they always say is like, you look so tired. And so I'm always like, what can make me look less tired? And so I said to her, like, you can't play with these things. Like, they aren't good for you. If you want to play with things, this is what you play with. And they were these beautiful bottles my parents had brought back on a recent trip from India. And I had this moment where I thought, oh my gosh, if my skincare isn't good enough for her, it likely isn't good enough for me. And if this is what on gut instinct I believe in, I need to spend some more time here. And so it took me on a bit of a journey, one, to understand that what I thought was family tradition was steeped in this science. The science is Ayurveda. Are you familiar with Ayurveda at all?
I am actually. I am familiar with so many things. I mean, I love Indian culture. So
I love it.
so yeah, I've tried to go to India twice for Indian weddings. I'm still bitter about that, but that's another story that we'll have to have coffee over. But yes, very familiar with Ayurveda and all the healing properties. So that was something that as soon as I came to that event that you spoke at, I was looking all and far and wide for the products, because I was like, Ayurvedic products, amazing.
It's like, that's exactly what it is. It's like, it's the healing science of India. It's the traditional wellness science. And even in India now, if you go, 80% of the Indian population still sees Ayurvedic practitioners, but in concert with their regular doctors. So it's not like one has to be in opposition to the other, but it's really this understanding that there are, both from a mind body way, like there are ways that we can proactively manage our healthcare, which we're all seeing people jump into now with like meditation and yoga. But like, those were things my dad was doing when we were little. And I was like, why are you so weird? And, just be like a normal dad and make pancakes. And, and now I laugh because everything he taught us is now, in vogue. And then, so anyways, sorry, I'm getting a bit sidetracked. So what I realized was this beautiful, rich science called Ayurveda, but I also had this moment where I was like, why did it take me so long to get here in terms of going clean with my skincare? Because, I feel like I've always been on a bit of a wellness journey. I was a fitness instructor in grad school. I was like, because of my dad, I was like, we were taking supplements when we were kids and he was, putting turmeric on the pimples, but he was also like very, very much engaged in the wellness world. And the conclusion I came to was because when people buy their skincare, they buy it for results. They buy it because they feel like they look tired. They buy it because they feel like their skin is red or their skin is dry, or they love their skin so much that they're like, please let nothing damage it.
That's it.
So I was like, I was looking around and I was like, nothing in clean was speaking to results. It was all about better for you and non-toxic. And this was a number of years ago. There wasn't even, for people who are shopping now, there's clean at Sephora. And
yeah, we need to talk about that. I want to get into clean because,
then, right? If you wanted something clean, you went to the Healthy Planet.
Exactly.
or which is a great store, or you went to, there's a beautiful like niche store if you're from Canada called the Detox Market. It's also in the US in New York and LA, but like it was very niche. And so I was like, nobody's speaking to efficacy. Like these ingredients can work. And so I was like, I can take this like old world science in which I inherently believe, I can prove it. I started my career in pharma. I can prove it in modern science. And so that's what I set out to do. When we first started, we worked with 2 Ayurvedic doctors in India, and I hired, via my network, a former pharmaceutical chemist. And, and that's really what got us started. And it really created this ethos of like science, old world science meets new world science, or like, Ayurveda proven. And so it's been a journey.
Well, I actually am just excited to hear that this healing journey of making sure your daughter was okay has led to this amazing brand that you created. So, because again, here's women always thinking of somebody else. I mean, of course, your beautiful daughter, and that's led to this amazing journey of you becoming an entrepreneur, taking care of our skin. So, thanks to you.
It's funny.
It looks like
me yesterday, because I'm being very vulnerable, but like now I'm perimenopausal, and it's funny because it's amazing how life events shift the way you view the world and then create these incredible opportunities. Because I was actually commenting on another brand, not a skincare brand that I admire, and they just came out with like something for women who are perimenopausal and menopausal, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's because once people realize like these different life events inspire, it's incredible.
Yeah, you just never know what's going to shape your entrepreneurial story. I've heard so many, and they always come from a need, right? Usually it's not for money, it's because of a need. So
absolutely.
Let's dig into entrepreneurship a little bit more. Like we were talking about in this song, it's not easy to be an entrepreneur, never mind a female entrepreneur. Because you're always like juggling so many different things. So in your case, you're balancing being a mom, a wife, and a business owner. And I'd love to know, balancing all of these roles, what was your biggest challenge that you faced early on? And how did you even push through and not give up?
It's amazing. So, there's a lot of roles. Like, so in this particular situation, you're right. I was like a young mom. Like, so when I had the idea, then I had my second. And when we first started formulating, like, I remember he was in a car seat and taking him to my first meeting, and he was 6 weeks old. Right. But I had this idea, I was super passionate about it, but I took a very pragmatic approach. So from the concept to when we launched was like more than 2 years, because I was like very like neurotic science geek about it. And like, we did things at the lab bench and all this kind of stuff. I think the hardest thing to navigate is I remember a few people saying like, oh, I really admired what you've done. You've clearly done this to create balance in your family life. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, my life would be far more balanced if I had a corporate job. And when I had a corporate job, I worked really hard. And it's not that, but it's one, when you start a business, you are everything from, the custodian to the CEO and everything in between. So
Right.
you're holding all hats. I saw this incredible post the other day that was like, it was the CEO of I think it was like a $10 million business. And she was like, people think that now we've hit $10 million, like everything's great, but it's a picture of her and she's in a van, like unpacking. And it's like, true, you're doing it all. And so this was a decision out of like a very strong passion and a very strong belief that there was, from a business perspective, like it was untapped. Like I could see that people were dipping their toes into Ayurveda. And I was like, we need this for our skin. Like if people are drinking turmeric lattes, oh my gosh, what it could do for our skin. And so I think the hardest part has just been navigating the entire time, because just like the business goes in cycles, so does your family life. So, there was a time in the early days where my husband took on a really large role and he traveled a ton. And we had 2 little kids. And so I had 2 different drop-offs. So I'd get up in the morning, do breakfast, drop one, drop the other, go to the office, swing by on my way back, pick up one, pick up the other, like come back. And I remember, and I credit COVID, COVID was awful and purely awful in so many ways, but it changed the way we looked at business, and it changed the way that we looked at parents, because I can remember having what I felt was an important call with a retailer, and my daughter was in the back seat, and saying to her, because she loved to sing, and saying, for this call, I need you to do me a favor and just sing in your head. Because in my head, I was like, what if I'm in the middle of this call and she starts belting out a song, and
Oh my
I didn't want
gosh.
them to know that I was in the car with anybody, because I was worried it would make me look unprofessional. I was worried it would make me look less committed. I was worried that they would look at the time and say, like, she should be. Well, I was worried about all the different things that they would say. And so as I've navigated through the business and as I've navigated through my family life, as family life has changed, I've had to change the way that I worked. And as the business changed, I've had to change the way that I do my family life. And so
I was just thinking during COVID, I think the business and the personal they started to collide, right?
yeah.
And
And
so people realize, oh, I'm a woman in business. I have a family. And
all of a sudden, like now, if like I'm on a call, I could be on a call with Sephora and someone could walk by and I don't even flinch. I just keep talking because it's okay now. People know, and they know I have an office and they have seen me at the office, and some days they're going to see me at home.
exactly.
And it's been, I've been very lucky. When the kids were little, my parents were incredible. And I remember there was, they would help out whenever they could, but there was always one night a week they would come and they would bring dinner. And what they would do is they would like, this is like the real goods. Like, this is what I tell when people ask me, like, how do you do this as a mom? And I'm like, you got to recruit people. And my parents, I mean, they adored my kids and they were always so supportive. And so they would pick up the kids from school, they would bring dinner, and they would stay there for the evening. And that would day that I worked late. That's how I navigated that.
So family support
Family
helps
support
with
was
balancing multiple roles.
Yeah.
And sometimes it sounds like just being real with people and saying, hey, I'm a female business owner. So that means it includes having a family. So if you hear them in the background, as we see them in the background, like I did,
Yes.
I remember seeing a journalist interviewing like a scientist who was talking about some major COVID development, and his son came in and said, I'm ready for lunch.
Yeah.
into the TV interview. And he's like, I'll be right there.
Difference, right? Like, kids don't know the difference. Like, I remember like just last year, my daughter's like the cutest, but I think she didn't want to disturb me on a call. So she went on the floor and I didn't even know she was there. And she slinked behind and she touched my foot to get my attention. And I screamed. And I was like, that did not work.
That didn't work.
Because I think she wanted to be like, where's my pens or something? But yeah, no, it's been a journey. And I think that's the big lesson, not just for parents, but for anybody starting a business, is that I don't even know if balance is the goal.
Yeah.
What it really is about being fluid. When
and maybe focusing on whatever you need to focus in that moment.
When your family needs you, you've got to focus there. And when the business needs you, you've got to focus there. And sometimes what gets sacrificed is sleep, and sometimes what gets sacrificed is
relationships.
The fun stuff in life, like going out or like, and that's, and I'm learning to bring that back in now. But there's been times where you're kind of like, I can't do it all. So.
And don't beat yourself up, right?
No, absolutely.
I think that's probably the lesson that keeps on giving is, ladies, don't beat yourself up. Okay. You've had actually as well an extremely successful career, both as you in your corporate strategy and in your entrepreneurial journey. And I'd love to know, how did you know it was time to bet on yourself and just take the leap and say, okay, I'm going to leave corporate and I'm going to start this company? That's a hard thing that I think so many women would love to know how to do that.
It's hard. So there's the in-between part. So is that I worked in corporate. And then when I say I worked in consulting, I actually put up my own shingle, and it was unplanned. Again, I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I decided, like, I got really inspired to do more work around, I was still consulting back to pharma on strategy and all that kind of work. So I had like part of my consulting practice was there, but part of my consulting practice was around people, because I just felt like corporations needed to do a better job developing young talent, developing diverse talent. And so that was actually the really big leap, was leaving my corporate job to put up my own shingle as a consultant, because I that last day of my corporate career, like, I remember my sister had to come pick me up from the office because I drove a corporate car. And I had, I feel very blessed, but I had moved up the ladder or whatever, somewhat, at a certain pace. And so that was a big leap. My parents thought I was crazy. I was about to get married. I think my mother-in-law was like, like what's happening in there, over there.
Yeah,
And
you've got a good gig here. Like, why would you leave that to go
having
start
and
something in the
having
unknown?
a BMW, like it was like you've given it all up, you've given up the secure salary. I was,
Right.
doing well for someone at that age. But I think I knew in my heart I needed something different. And so when I was consulting, it took a number of months. Like I had months with like zero cash. I wasn't making anything. I had saved up for it because it had been in my mind for a little while, but it was still hard. And I would see my friends who were still in corporate, and I think they thought I was a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but I think they were like, okay, but I've always been blessed with like amazing family and amazing friends who support me along the journey. And then once I got my first client, then I started getting more. And then it got to the place where I started to hire. And then we had like freelance contractors and I had full-time team. And that was my first foray into entrepreneurship.
Well, it sounds like there's no magic bullet. You just have to, again, putting on your big girl pants, take some deep breaths and sort of focus on, it sounds like you were very purposeful too, right? Like this is something you knew in your heart you wanted to do. You save for it. So this is a money show. So you don't want to just take a leap without some cash in the bank.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I apologize. We're going to have to take a quick pause. For some reason, my computer just lost all its battery. I don't know if it's because there's something wrong. So I'm just going to get a plug just in case it.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I wanted to just say to our community that, yeah, it sounds like even from Lisa's journey, there really is no way to know for sure, except in your heart that you're doing the right thing. So if you feel like this is something you want to do, which is take that leap into entrepreneurship, then it's just do it. Do it. But do it with cash, right? I think that's the key. Do it, but have a financial plan. Maybe have a 6 or a year emergency fund, just to make sure that you have some financial security, even if everything else feels uncertain. We're just talking about why. I'm just talking to the confidant high earning community as to why there's no special time. There's no time where you go, yeah, it's the right time now. The water's fine.
Well, actually, my biggest message to people is it's never the right time, because in some ways, when I first left corporate, it felt like the right time because I didn't have kids. I was just getting married and I had savings, but those savings weren't meant for a business. They were just, I was finally, for the first time in my life, learning how to save. And so, that did support me through that time. I think that it's never the right time, but I do think what's hard is like, I look back and we're in the 10-year anniversary of the brand.
Oh, congratulations.
Incredible. And like, in some ways there's a part of me that's like, oh my God, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like what, especially when you're in business, you don't often stay in a job for 10 years. Right. And so I'm like, what have we been doing for 10 years? So it's amazing. And the last couple of years have just been phenomenal growth and launches at Sephora and this like partnership,
Yes,
Marriott Luxury and all these great things. But then there's sometimes, as a person, you're like, oh my gosh, should I have moved faster? Should I have done this? But the difference was like, even when we launched the brand, I was still consulting. And it wasn't though the brand was a side hustle. It wasn't positioned that way. I was actually fluidly kind of doing both. And then there was a time where I had to like put a stake in the ground and say, for me to move into the brand. But for the first few years, I was still taking other work because not only did I have to subsidize the brand, I didn't want it to, have such a significant impact on my personal life. And so there were a number of years post moving into the brand where we really felt the financial impact at home. But, or actually we didn't because
because you had this consulting income. So you had what I call multiple streams of income as your business grows,
right? So it could fund back into the business and it could help, me still do the things that I needed to do in my home life. And I think that moment of moving from corporate to first consulting, it changed the way that I looked just at funds and money in general. Because I started to realize, one, it was so precious when you're not getting it.
That's right.
Right. And all of a sudden kind of like, it was amazing. Like I used to joke that that's when I looked my best because I had no money. And so I would like have,
you're worried. So you're thinner.
Well, I would say like I used to buy, those tuna packs that like had tuna and crackers. Every day I would have one of those in my purse plus a bag of carrots. And it wasn't and because I was like, oh, this is like healthy. Like I've got my protein, I've got a vegetable, I would eat an apple. I would and I was actually and I laugh now because it's like, and I never was like, oh my gosh. And it's funny, we live in a different world now too, where everybody wants to have a matcha latte every morning. But but I started to see, like, if I really want to do this, I have to make some personal sacrifices.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that it's whatever goal that you have to really believe in it 100%, and also create a cushion for yourself, and a financial cushion. And that's what I was talking about when you got the plug to the.
I apologize.
No. It's great, because I think sometimes sometimes I hear that message from other entrepreneurs: just have faith. But no, you need faith with finance. So there's two F's involved.
You need faith with finance. You can, I think that's actually what scares me. I met a founder who said to me, she was like deep into her business. I think the traction, and it was compelling. But you sometimes hear people whose like their stories are they started in their parents' basement. So that's the cushion.
Yeah, that's a cushion.
And I actually always knew, I mean, this was never on our agenda, but if like in a worst case scenario, I could have always moved back in with my parents. Like
right.
It would take me now. But she started it without
a cushion,
any financial backing. And I remember saying to her, what you should do is get a BDC loan. And so for people who are in Canada, or people who are outside of Canada, what a BDC loan is: a loan from the Business Development Bank of Canada. It's like Canada's bank for entrepreneurship.
Right.
And I kind of had nonchalant said, it's not that hard to get a loan from BDC. And I said to her, from what I understand, I did mine in person and meeting with them, but I said, I'm pretty sure you can go online.
No, it's pretty good. I think you can get up to 100,000 to start, and they'll give you a couple of years.
Yeah, and I was like, what I was told was you could get $50,000 by not even meeting them, by doing this whole online application. To which she said, no, I can't, because in order to get BDC, you have to have certain financial fundamentals, because they need
a business plan, potentially, or even credit. I'm
just because what BDC does is they look at your personal finances, and not that it's meant to finance the wealthy, but it's meant to show that you have some sort of financial stability.
Yeah.
If we're going to give you money, have you ever owned a property? I bought my first property when I was 29, right? So and now it isn't necessarily that young, but at least I could show that I had some.
Well, I think that's key is again, it's if you're going to start a business, have some kind of financial cushion. If it's your parents' basement, being able to live there and keeping your expenses low, right?
It's only until recently I stopped sleeping at people's houses when I did business travel.
Yeah, I get it.
I would, to be honest, I still would.
No shame in that. I think people need to be real, because you don't necessarily know when you see Instagram posts and all these things what's really happening when you go under the hood and you look closer, or open the kimono, whatever you want to say. But I think it's important for people to know. And I always say to people, I love doing this, but it's a money show. So inspiration has to also come with a cushion, right?
Yeah. No.
Financial wisdom. And what I was going to mention, because we're talking about money, is I'd love to know about your experience pitching and asking for money, especially as a woman. What was that like for you? And how did you navigate that?
It was, so I had never done something like that before. I have pitched, when you have a product, a physical product, actually, even if you have a service, you're constantly pitching your customers, right? Whether it's whether you're doing anything from submitting an RFP or a proposal, or when you have a product you're pitching. When I started my career, I did a year of pharma sales. And so it was post MBA. And I remember a lot of people used to say would kind of quip oh, you have an MBA, why are you doing a year of sales? And one of the things that the year of sales taught me was it taught me how to talk to people. It taught me how to earn, one of the things they used to say was you have to earn the right to ask for business. And it really taught me that. And so when I was pitching for money, it was different in that I still had to earn the right, but the earn the right came from being so massively prepared on the business that I can meet somebody for the first time and ask them for money. It's the craziest concept, right? That you could, you could, like, when I think, so for context, actually, so for the context of your listener, I think what we're talking about is my investor raise. And
Yes.
so I worked with an advisor. That's actually one of the key things that helped me specifically, was I knew we needed to raise funds. I didn't know how to do it. I had a deck together. I was having these conversations, but I wasn't like, really getting it done. And, again, like maybe it's manifesting or whatever it is, I came in contact with someone who was extremely skilled, like had worked in private equity, had worked in venture capital. And, we basically created this relationship where she helped to advise me in this process. And so she prepped me for calls and she taught me how to do a lot. And so they were things that I didn't know how to do. I could speak vehemently about the brand, and I could speak passionately, and I could tell you why I believed it. And that's half the battle.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Is
What's your advice for women who are pitching? So it sounds like being really prepared
being
and
super,
maybe partnering with somebody who is in that venture capital space.
I think it's either partnering, but like, I think, those people are hard to come by. And I think if there's anything, like what I've also become since meeting her, actually, is because she's a voracious podcast listener, is like, and this is great because anybody who's listening to your podcast obviously loves a good podcast, is that there are lots of ways for you to gain this information. Podcast is one. Obviously, I think you could probably read it in books, but I'm going to tell you that I haven't. I think it's also like getting to know people who've done it. So, I remember booking a call with a founder who had posted on LinkedIn that she was in the middle of a raise. And she wrote me back and said, "I'm really busy right now. I will talk to you when the raise is done." And at the time I was like, oh, like, people are usually, and then I got it. Like once I did the raise, I was like, how did she even have to write me back? I wouldn't have like,
Right. So raising is when you're in the middle of raising capital, right?
Is when you're in the middle of raising capital.
Okay.
But then she's, we talked for half an hour and she was like, here are 3 things that I think were really important to me. And here are 3 things that I think really helped me. And those little bite-sized pieces, as you put them together, they become part of your toolkit that you create, or that you carry with you as you raise and ask for dollars. And so, yes, I did it from an investor capacity, and we have investors on our cap table, which range from individuals to funds. And I had to meet with all of them and I had to answer their questions, and they would sometimes follow up with questions. Like I would get an email, like, if they're still in process and they're still thinking, and they would ask me sometimes like challenging questions where I'd be like, oh, that's a good one. Like, and I would have to think through the answers. It was hard, but it was so important. And at the end of the day, as it should be, I've taken on the great responsibility of holding someone else's income. Really.
Yeah.
They've earned it and they've given it to me to do my very best with. And, as someone told me, is like, they didn't give you their grocery money, which is true, but they've also entrusted me with their funds, and I need to do my very, very best with that. And so all the rigor of asking for it is necessary, because I do need to earn the right to ask for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's you want to, because now you're taking their money and you're entrusted with their money, so you need to respect that process as well. And I get that, and I think what I'm hearing from you as we talk about, because we need more women pitching, we need more women, we need to like duplicate you like a million times, right? So just for our listeners, just understanding, being really passionate is half the battle, is what you were saying. Listening to podcasts, maybe seeking out organizations that pitch. I know there's a few, and we will put some of those organizations in our show notes, because there's a lot of organizations where you can go and hear other people pitch, and who are asking for money in real time, so you can get a chance to see that. And I've been to a number of those, and you just still don't see very many women there asking for money. So
and I know this is a finance show, so I should have jumped in and said, this is like, you've got to know your numbers. You've got to know your numbers. You've got to have a model. You've got to have something that is working, and you've got to be able to demonstrate from from a financial standpoint, if you can give, here's what the business is going to do. And if you're at the very beginning of a business, let's say you have an idea, in some ways that's the best time to get capital. It costs you the most because you're giving away more ownership of the business. If you think of like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, right? You'll see someone who's like, we've done $100,000 in sales. And so for $20,000, I'm saying the value is $100,000. So for $20,000, you own 20%. That's a lot to give up.
Crazy. Yeah.
But
people don't realize that it's a big ask in terms of people who pitch on Shark Tank, but it's a big giveaway.
It's a big giveaway. And when someone's investing in you in the early days, they're really investing in your dream. Like you can sell people on a dream. But when you do what I did, which is go 8 years in and start asking for money, there's a lot of questions to answer. Yeah. It's like, explain what happened in year 2. And explain
I never thought of that.
Right. And it's like, explain this and explain that. And, we're in a very incredibly unique situation where from COVID on, we really grew. And so I almost see our business in different cycles. There's like the first 5 years. And, in the first 3 or 4 of those, I was still consulting. And then there was like the next part of that journey. And you have to be so prepared with your numbers. And I think there's a 2-part. You can't be so numbers that people can't feel your passion, but you can't be all passion or else you die quickly.
They're scared. They're like, passion won't pay the bills when they're asking me for my money back with interest.
Yeah. And so what that is like for me, like one of my best friends is in finance and her husband is this like brilliant CFO. Like the amount of time that the two of them spent on my financial model. Like I remember one day their kids fell asleep on the floor. Like we just like worked it. And
I hope you took them out for ice cream at some point.
I know. It's funny. I was thinking about them this morning. I was like, I don't think I say thank you enough to them. But like, it's wild.
No, it's a lot of work. And when you were talking about your business and cycles, I was just thinking that means you really have to know your business inside out and backwards, especially if you're going back in time to look at year 1 to however long. So it's like, depending on when you ask and pitch, you have to know your business even more intimately because you have to know it over a longer period of time and all the different cycles it's been through. It really makes sense as to why pitching is so all-consuming. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to talk a little bit because we've been talking about, your numbers and, this whole pitching process. And I just want to know, because on this podcast, we talk a lot about money and power. How has your relationship with money evolved as you've built this company?
Oh my gosh, my relationship with money is like an ongoing.
Is it still considered a friend?
Yeah, it probably needs its own therapy, but it's interesting, right? Because in one set, I'm very much of the mindset that money is a renewable resource, but time and health aren't. And so I always say to myself, in a worst case scenario, something, I'm going to knock on wood, but something awful happens. Between both my my corporate background and even these years running the business, I know I could, figure it out if money became an issue. But what the relationship with money teaches you, like, it's funny. So actually, maybe this is a better way to say the story. It's like when I was in corporate and I was in pharma, I mean, we worked hard, but we were treated, when it came to our sales meetings, and like I remember like the number of times I've stayed at the Ritz and these beautiful hotels and like so amazing. And then, then I start Sahajan and I stay with like a girlfriend who's in Brooklyn and like in a neighborhood that made me a little bit afraid at night. Like I remember I would dial 911 on my phone and I would be like walking with my phone being like, because I would be coming back and then I would sleep at her place. And it makes you realize, like, when I first joined pharma, I was overwhelmed by it because I wasn't raised that way. My parents were new immigrants. We had a great life, but I don't think we stayed at a hotel until like adulthood, maybe, right? Like as a family, we didn't go out to eat a ton, like all that kind of stuff. Right. And now I was thrust into the corporate world where it was like, oh, don't worry, you can expense that. Don't worry, you can expense that.
Right.
And you're staying at these beautiful hotels. And it's not that there wasn't financial rigor. It was just, it was part of the culture, especially because it was part of the sales organization or the sales and marketing organization. And then I go back into entrepreneurship and it's like, like where like I started, financing my life on points and like, and carrying tuna and doing all.
Right, right.
So what it teaches you is the value of money, but what it also teaches you is like, you do and you don't need money to be happy. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, what's a need, what's a want, right?
what's a need, what's a want? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I would love to secure my children's future. And I think life would be easier, if you're not worried about what's in your bank account. But it does teach you like for me, someone said to me, like, do you ever wish you were back in pharma? Because you would probably be some big head honcho. And I was like, that's amazing. And that's such a compliment. But like the journey is, the journey may not have had the same financial linear pathway, but like the journey far outweighs it. So I think my relationship with money is like, I will always make sure that I'm okay. And I will always make sure my family's okay. And I have no qualms. I would, and I think I grew up in a house where my parents did that and we worked young. And when I was working in pharma, I was still working as a fitness instructor. Like, my family is I describe us as like a worky family. Like we've
Right.
never been afraid to work. So I don't fear, like some people fear finances, and I don't fear it because I know I will always make sure that we're okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said a couple of things that I feel like is a mantra when you're a business owner, which is your ability to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
You start to understand that when you're an entrepreneur, that's just a skill you continue to develop that you might not develop as much in corporate. I call it, I call it, and I think I've seen it. It's kind of like your figure it outofness. It's an actual.
Oh, I love that.
Your figure it outofness.
Out of
That IQ just keeps going higher and higher and higher when you work for yourself. It's your level of figure it outofness that just improves, and it gives you confidence. Like there's confidence that comes from that you don't get if you don't have to figure things out. You can call corporate and say, hey, this isn't working out, or my check didn't come in. Like you figure it out a lot more.
You're kind of forced to, and you're forced to fly by the seat of your pants all the time.
Yeah.
Right. You do things without knowing how to do them.
Yeah. Figure it outofness.
Point in the journey. And I've said this to my team, like I've never been the CEO of a brand that's hit, I remember, that hit $1 million. And then I've never been the CEO of a brand that's been at Sephora. And I've never been at the, and as we grow into these new milestones, it's like, I've never done that before. But
you don't. And you know what? The figurative outofness skill leads you to do so many different things that as you said, you never thought you'd ever be able to do. So kudos to you. A couple more questions before we wrap up is I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that you're just such a big advocate for representation, both like in your business and just in your leadership journey overall. And I want to know, what do you think needs to change for more women, especially women of color, to thrive in entrepreneurship?
Such a good question. I think we're further along, I'm sure, than maybe when you and I started, in the sense, I really believe it's hard to be what you can't see. And we need more women doing different things, and we need more relatable role models. I think that's part of it, right? So if you meet someone, I don't know, I can't think, this is not a good example, but like, Kim Kardashian just came out with like a Skims Nike partnership, which is so cool. But it's like my starting point and Kim Kardashian's starting point are different, right? And people need to see more, I think, relatable and role models. And I also think the systems and the systems need to be in place. I guess it's kind of twofold, right? I believe like everything from like banks and BDC and the way we interact with women when they start businesses needs to change. And we need to make sure that they're actively like reaching back to help pull us forward. But I also think we need to do a good job of reaching forward, because I think sometimes we count ourselves out too soon.
Yeah.
I've done that. I think I've done that too, right? I think I've hit places where, to your point about figure outofness.
Yes. That your IQ goes up.
No, I'm just going to hide. Or just like, I think of like when I started, again, the brand is 10 years old. This was before the influencer culture was as big as it is now.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And there were very few South Asians on that scene. Now, like I could have, just in Toronto, I could have a party and just make it all South Asian creators, and it would be massive, and there would be the most coolest, incredible people, but that didn't exist. And so I think that the more we have people getting into these roles, the more it's also going to feel normal, if I can say it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think, so I'll give you the opposite is like, so we were with this really cool retailer called Credo in the US, and it's like one of the leading clean beauty retailers. And I remember we had a really honest conversation because they were indie brands tend to be founded by women. And so they had a lot of indie brands in their portfolio, but they didn't have a lot of founders of color. They were really honest about that, I think, once they sat back and looked at it. And part of it is that I think, again, when it's like looking at I don't know what the right word is, but it's like when you filter through, it's like how many people are starting businesses? Well, the proportionate amount of women of color is probably less. But then now those that maybe get their products that are retail ready is different. And by retail ready, I think one of the things that people don't realize is like, if you want to be in a retailer, like it's not like the soap that you make at your house, which is still gorgeous, but all of a sudden, like it needs a UPC code and it needs to be registered and it needs to have all of those things. Because what they were saying to me is like, we get a lot of applications, but not everybody could actually be in a store. So then that number starts to shift. But then there is an unconscious bias. And there is also of like, I've just never, you don't look like what our founders look like or whatever it is that they don't realize. And then I think there's an element of it, which is like, is like, I don't know what the right way to say it is, but it's like there's not, they don't, I think it's like that we don't have the same models of success. And we're starting to see that right now, right? We're starting to see that people are being successful and they're growing their businesses and they're doing all of those things. So I think, programs that actually force businesses to look at who their suppliers are, who their partners are actually really, I believe they're really, really, really important.
Right. Like those diverse programs.
Not
Well, they're going away in places, but yeah.
Because it's like, sometimes we don't realize we're not casting a wide enough net. And
I love that.
And I think the way to also think about it, and I was sharing this with another founder recently, is I said, what I didn't realize when I got into beauty, and this isn't true of everybody, but that you don't realize, like, some of the most successful entrepreneurs, and they've worked for it and they've deserved it. I'm not, not taking anything from that but you don't appreciate, maybe they grew up in the beauty industry, or maybe they're from beauty families.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's
they're
kind of entrepreneur, right? They come from entrepreneurial families, so they have
a founder. I remember asking him how he got into Sephora, and he was like, "Oh, my dad knows everybody there." Like he brokered that relationship, right? So what you don't realize is sometimes people aren't showing up in those places, not because they don't deserve it, not because someone's intentionally leaving them out, but because maybe they didn't have the network. Maybe they didn't have someone to make that big intro. Maybe they didn't have someone to teach them how to navigate. Like I look at the people who, I talk about that advisor who helped me with the raise, and I continue to work with, like, if you don't have sometimes people helping you close the gaps that you have, it becomes really hard, really hard.
So it's a few things, basically, that you're saying. It's really having those connections that are connecting you to opportunities, to models that you might not be familiar with, so that you have the ability to level up in places you can't imagine because you've never been there.
You've never been
You wouldn't even know what questions to ask or how to even start.
Yeah.
And then sometimes as well, it might be you just need to put yourself out there a bit more as a person of color.
And you need to be willing, like, I think one thing that I think you realize, like, because I listen to a lot of podcasts too, is you hear stories of founders who are like, I found 10 people that I really wanted to meet, and I asked them all, and only one person was willing to meet me, but they got me here. And I think those are like that's the hustle that's required. And I think sometimes, maybe as women we're raised to be like a little more quiet and not like whatever, or maybe as, again, like I often with like the people I grew up with, like my parents were very like, just study and everything will be okay.
Right.
Well, that doesn't work if you're in the business world. Like you can be really smart and you can do a really good job, but if you're not doing an effective job and of, sharing that with your network, if you're not doing an effective job of creating that world around you, that's also part of being successful at business.
Fair enough. And I really appreciate you talking through what women of color has, the fastest rising group of entrepreneurs are women. We just aren't necessarily going in the 7-figure range and asking for money and pitching. And it's, again, it sounds like we just don't know. We don't necessarily have the connections. We don't know who to ask.
We don't
aren't putting ourselves out there enough. And sometimes also we're not getting the support that we need.
Yes. So I think it's important that we look at the structures that are around us, like those need to change, but also it isn't just on the structures. There's work that we need to do too ourselves.
Fair enough. And finally, what are you most proud of in terms of the decisions you've made, business or personal? What are you most proud of?
That's a great question. What am I most proud
Especially
of?
around money.
Oh, around money.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe this we're actually reverts back to your song, but I'm most proud that I didn't give up. I'm most proud that I didn't give up. There have been times in the business where, and you'll see businesses that are so special and so incredible, and they reach certain goals, and then something happens, and sometimes you have to close or something happens, right? But there have been times where I've wondered, or someone has said to me, like, if you don't hit X goal, like, when will you walk away? And it's not like I'll never walk away. I don't mean it that way, like that I'm so blind, blindly following something that I'm not being intelligent about it. But I think, I remember at the beginning of COVID, for example, being on a call with founders who were in tears. What are we going to do? And we were retail first at the time. All of our retailers had closed. And I remember thinking, I wonder what's going to happen now. What are we going to do? And, fast forward in time, that happened in March. By September, October, we were a digital first brand.
That's right.
Going quickly, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I didn't give up. I'm glad. And I think, to your figure outofness, I think the last few years, I feel even more confident that I can figure things out. But in those early years, I think there have been moments where I've been like, is this just too hard?
Yeah. The challenging part about being a business owner is I always feel like we're social scientists. We don't get to make mistakes, and people are like, oh, you just were experimenting and it didn't work.
Remember, like, when I was in corporate, like, it would be like, we embrace failure. And it's like, it's different when it's like your failure is also your own cash, or like your own, like, I protect my team fiercely. I care about them so much. Like, it's a very different feeling. And so, like, I feel like now I carry the responsibility of, my team. I carry the responsibility of my investors, because so many people put their trust in me. But my confidence in terms of my figure outofness is way higher. And I think
your family, your company, like your employees, your investors, everybody's on your shoulders, but they trust that you can figure it out.
And they actually give me what I've realized is, and this is for anyone who is planning on pitching, is once people are on board with you, they will figure it out with you. They want you to succeed. I think I used to be afraid to, like, open up the kimono and say, like, this is what, or I don't even know if that's the right word.
Yeah, the kimono is right on there.
People use it as a phrase, and it's the first time I've ever said it out loud, and I was like, was that an appropriate statement?
No, it's absolutely. It's like, going under the hood. That's what I do when I look at people's finances.
In a podcast,
open up their kimono or
pulled out of my mouth
their hood, and
I used to be afraid to open up and say, like, I'm struggling with this. And now what I've realized is, like, people are there. Like, I actually feel far less alone, because, we've been able to recruit some cool people who are like, oh, you're having this issue? Sure. Like, I even just, like, now we file our US taxes, and I was talking to our accountant. She was like, I don't know that question. You're gonna have to find another accountant. I was like, oh, I actually have someone who I can call. Like, and people want to help you. They want to help you. And so it's amazing. Yeah. People are amazing.
People want you to succeed.
They want you to succeed.
And you want to get more confident in your area of genius or figure it outofness, and being able to also be authentic on what you don't know and who you can also entrust to help you figure things out as well. So it's a journey. It really is. I really appreciate this. This has been such a fantastic interview. And before I wrap up, are you willing to do some fire round questions? Just one sentence, one answer, one quick answer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So one splurge you never feel guilty about.
Okay. Shoes.
Me too. Okay. Coffee or tea?
Neither.
Neither? Water?
Water. Yeah, I'm a big water drinker.
Okay.
Sometimes I admit, like what is it, the liquid cigarette? I love a good Coke Zero.
You love a what? A good
Coke Zero.
Coke Zero. Okay. I'm absolutely judging you on that one, but it's okay.
You totally should. It is terrible.
Okay, good. All right. And then finally, what does being a high earning woman mean to you?
I think it means being able to navigate my own choices. That's what I think finances allow you to do is choice. I say to my kids, I'm a big fan of education. And what I say to my kids is, I want you to be educated because you can make choice. And I think finances allow you the same.
It's all about choice. Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Honestly, your journey is such a powerful example of a woman that's leading both with purpose and with courage. And for our listeners, if today's episode inspired you, please share it with a friend who really needs to hear it. I certainly got so many gems from you today, Lisa. And please don't forget to subscribe to the High Earning Women podcast for more conversations that will truly help you live the life you deserve. And Lisa, where can people connect with you and learn more about Sahajan?
Yeah, I mean, social media is probably the easiest way. So you can find us, on Instagram, Sahajan Skincare, also on TikTok and Facebook, and that's probably the easiest way to learn more about us. And obviously, you can shop us online. You can shop us at Sephora Canada. You can shop us. We talked about other retailers, Credo, Detox Market. Like, I would be so thrilled if you checked us out.
Okay, we will also link it with our show notes for this episode. And that's it for today's episode of the High Earning Women podcast. If you loved today's conversation, I'd love for us to stay connected. You can also follow us on our LinkedIn page at Team Jackie Porter. And that's where we share actually a lot of insights, resources, and updates that I know you won't want to miss. And if you'd like to keep listening to more episodes of this podcast, you can also find us on all of your favorite audio platforms. And that includes Spotify, Deezer, Amazon Music, Player FM, and much, much more. Just search for the High Earning Women podcast and hit follow so you never miss a conversation. Thanks again, Lisa. And to all the high earning women listening, remember, wealth is more than just money. It's about freedom. It's about choices and living boldly. As entrepreneurs, we can redefine success, but also build wealth on our own terms. Until next time, keep building, keep earning, and keep living the life you want. Ladies, you're all the greatest. Be in touch soon, high earning community. Take care, everybody. Bye. Thanks, Lisa.
Grinding all day, hustle refined, chatter is seething, G steers and obtain, bosses are title.